This is a Nova the Robot story. It's called Nova's Ark by David Kirk. In his tiny bedroom high above the city, Nova leaned over his workbench, rapping, twisting, cutting, clipping. The evening sun glinted off his steel brow, then sank behind the crystal spires of Roton, making them glisten like rubies. The stars, visible even during the day, grew bright. Nova tied a pair of copper strands and flicked a switch. His metal dog yipped happily to life, wagging a shiny new wire tail. "Good dog, Sparky," smiled Nova. "Now, let's make a friend for you." Standing on his chair, Nova stretched to reach the shelf where he kept his most precious possession, a set of wooden animals made in the ancient days of Roton. Carved by men before robots ever existed, the toy had been handed down through 1,000 generations of Nova's family. Nearly a year ago, on the night his father Taspit had left on his latest space mission, he had passed this treasure on to Nova. Nova cradled the brittle ark that contained the menagerie. A ship like this one would never fly, he thought, but in those distant times, men traveled this planet on seas of water, a liquid that had vanished from Roton long ago. He carefully removed the animals from the ark, turning special attention to a tiny lion. "What do you think, Sparky?" he asked. "A cat for you to play with?" Outside his window, a shooting star drew Nova's attention. From his balcony, he gazed at the twilight, raising a steel hand to a glimmering star in the western sky. "Dad's supposed to be near that one," he sighed. "Don't worry, Sparky. He'll be home soon." His mother, Luna, was stirring oil broth when Nova entered the kitchen. As they sat down to their steaming bowls, Nova loaded a post disc into the holograph player. Taspit appeared within the swirling green light. Grinning excitedly, he lifted a piece of glowing crystal toward the camera. The grinding engines of a huge mining machine nearly drowned out his shout. "I'll be home soon!" But this disc had come months ago. He had been assigned to continue his search for crystal. On this planet of robots, crystal energy was essential to life, and there was never enough to go around. After dinner, Nova studied a disc on starship design. It wasn't meant for little boys. Still, he knew it by heart. He believed that if he just tried hard enough, he could be the youngest star pilot ever. Perhaps he would be the one to find Zeit, the mythic moon of light. His mother laughed at the idea, but Nova knew better. In 1,000 bedtime stories, his dad had told him of this magical hidden sphere, a source of crystal energy so powerful and abundant that it could fuel Roton forever. Deep among the stars, it waited for him. His sleep mode auto-initiated. Nova's eyes went blurry as he scanned the screen. No longer able to focus, he plugged himself into the dream console. He slept of flying to the stars, flying with his dad. The glass sky towers of Roton glowed pink, reflecting the faint morning light. Eyes flickering, Nova sprang from his sleep platform and quickly performed his morning oiling. This was a day he had been anticipating for months, the class field trip to Axion, Roton's greatest space center. He packed a case with his best model spaceships and gulped down his breakfast loop pack whole. His mother clanked his steel cheek with a kiss as he rushed out the door. At school, Nova showed off the models he had built to his classmates. His friend Elex was nearly as excited as Nova. If only class could be like this every day. The Space Center was the most glorious place Nova had ever seen. It was miles high and miles across. Everywhere Nova looked, strange and beautiful ships took off to exotic worlds. As the highlight of the tour, each child was allowed to sit behind the console of a real glass cruiser. When it was Nova's turn, his teacher, Ms. Vettick, laughed. "This is the proper place for you, Nova. Someday you'll fly into space like your father. Exploration is in your wiring." On the roof of the Space Center, Nova squirmed uncomfortably as he waited for the hover bus with his classmates. All around him, majestic ships blasted into space. But here he was, as always, going nowhere. Just below him, the nose of that glass cruiser poked temptingly over its launch pad. What's the harm in another look, he thought, slipping out of line. Where's he going? The hangar was empty when Nova stepped through the hatch of the glass cruiser. At the pilot's console, he ran his hands over the gleaming controls. "Dad stands here when he's taking off," he whispered. His teacher's words echoed in his head. "Exploration is in your wiring." Panel lights flashed, leading his eye to a luminous red lever. Nova stared, knowing very well that he shouldn't touch it, but almost involuntarily his arm raised. It was just as though he was watching somebody else's hand pull the lever firmly down. Nova was thrown to the floor as the spaceship roared to life. Terrified, he struggled to his feet and peered out of the viewport. His planet shrank to a speck as the cruiser rocketed away. Then Roton was gone. Nova was lost and alone in empty space. For many days he drifted among the stars, afraid to touch the controls again. Somebody will come and find me, he thought. But as the weeks passed, he realized that he might never be found. "Then I'll learn to fly this ship," he said to himself. The controls were complex. Even though he had studied spaceships, the cruiser wouldn't always do what he wanted. But it wasn't long before he got the hang of it and even enjoyed buzzing around the planets. For months, Nova searched for home. His ship was nearly out of fuel. He tried to land on a golden moon of a gaseous planet, but in its strong gravity, he lost power. The ship went haywire. It spun, it flipped, it nearly shot to pieces. But Nova held on. It was scary, but it felt great too, slicing through the mountainous clouds. But ahead, "That's not a mountainous cloud," he gasped. "It's a mountain!" Nova pulled hard on the wheel, but the ship wouldn't lift. It slammed into the slope. He felt a great lurch as the engine exploded, blowing the ship down the mountainside like a ball from a cannon. For miles it jarred and bumped over the rocks. Then, gliding onto a sandy plain, it came gently to a rest. Nova pried the door open and stepped out into a new world.